Okay, sorry for the delay. I call this meeting of the Pearland Independent School District Board of Trustees to order on May 21st, 2019 at 5:08 PM. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Let the record show that trustees Gooden, Botkin, Berry, Floyd, Carbone, and Murphy and Decker are all present. We're going to move into the oaths.
The oath. Bobby, if you come forward.
All of us.
Okay. We're going to do the statement of elected officer first. So, Mr. Berry, we'll start with you. If you'll raise your right hand and repeat after me. I
Jeff Berry,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I have not directly or indirectly
that I have not directly or indirectly
paid, offered, or promised to pay,
paid, offered, or promised to pay,
contributed, or promised to contribute
contributed, or promised to contribute
any money or thing of value,
any money or thing of value,
or promised any public office or employment
or promised any public office or employment
for giving or withholding a vote
for giving or withholding a vote
at the election at which I was elected,
at the election in which I was elected,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Mr. Botkin, I
Lance Botkin,
do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I have not directly or indirectly
that I have not directly or indirectly
paid, offered, or promised to pay,
paid, offered, or promised to pay,
contributed, or promised to contribute
contributed, or promised to contribute
any money or thing of value,
any money or things of value,
or promised any public office or employment
or promised any public office or employment
for giving or withholding a vote
for given or withholding a vote
at the election at which I was elected,
at the election in which I was elected,
so help me God.
help me God.
Ms. Decker, I do solemnly swear that I have not directly or indirectly paid, offered, or promised to pay, contributed, or promised to contribute any money or thing of value, or promised any public office or employment for giving or withholding a vote at the election at which I was elected, so help me God. Now we'll do the oath of office. Raise your right hand. I
I, Jeff Berry,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office
that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office
of School Board Trustee for the Pearland Independent School District
School Board Trustee for the Pearland Independent School District
of the State of Texas,
of the State of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability
and will to the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and the laws of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
so help me God. I
I, Lance Botkin,
do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office
to faithfully execute the duties of the office
of School Board Trustee
of School Board Trustee
for the Pearland
for the Pearland Independent
School District of the State of Texas,
State of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability
and will to the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
so help me God.
help me God.
I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the duties of office of School Board Trustee for the Pearland Independent School District of the State of Texas, and will to the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States of this state, so help me God.
going to move into comments from our public. So, first up, this is the portion of the board meeting where the board receives input from patrons. Each person who addresses the board will have 5 minutes to speak on his or her issue. Because of topic posting requirements of the Open Meetings Act, board members will not ask questions of the patron and will not answer any questions posed to the board by the patron. No action can be taken on any issue presented during this patron comment segment of the board meeting. Patrons addressing the board will be notified when they are approaching the last 30 seconds of their allotted time to speak. Okay, so we have Miss Brady Henderson. Luciana?
Hi, good afternoon. I wasn't expecting to go so early. Try to make this as quick as possible. On May 2nd, I received a phone call from the assistant principal of my daughter's school at Dawson High School, and she said that my daughter needed a note from my religious leader regarding her hijab, which I thought was kind of strange. One, it was really early in the morning. Two, Hadia's been wearing a hijab since she was in the 4th grade. So she said that I needed a note and I needed to contact my religious leader in order for Hadia to continue with class. She would give Hadia a pass for that day, but she needed a note. So, of course, I contacted my imam, but I also thought it was strange that that was even a question since it was never brought up in the 5 years that we've been here. Actually, we've been here since she was in 1st grade. So I guess my question, well, since I can't present a question, I would like, hopefully, that some point in the future can be addressed, because when I looked at the school code of conduct, the district code of conduct, it says that hair should be worn neatly and no sort of cap, hats, or any head covering should be worn. My, I guess, suggestion is that can there be, sometime in the future, at some point, can there be a religious exception added to that? Because, and it's not even just about Hadia, because yes, we're Muslims and we wear hijab all the time while we're in mixed companies, but there are other religions also. We're not taking into consideration Rastafari, we're not taking into consideration Jewish men who have to wear a yarmulke. I just don't understand why that has not been added, and I hope that you guys will address that so that in the future it can be that somewhere in that paragraph religious exception can be added so things like this cannot happen. As for what happened to my daughter, no one questioned her after that day. I did request a meeting with the principal of the school just so that we can come to a common ground and have some type of discussion about multi-ethnic sensitivity and religious sensitivity, because it needs to be talked about so that things like this doesn't happen anymore. Misunderstandings of this sort doesn't happen with anyone else. But nothing has come of it, so I'm just hoping that you guys at some future date can address that and consider adding religious exception to the code of conduct when it comes to hair. Thank you. That's all I needed.
Thank you, Ms. Henderson. Okay. Ms. Gillespie? Sandra Gillespie?
Good evening. I'm a parent of a graduate and a current student in Pearland ISD. When my youngest attended the intermediate school in Pearland, one of the comments that the principal made for us incoming new parents, if there's a problem, try to be part of the solution by volunteering and not just complaining. Well, here I am 4 years later. I noticed an issue with the district's dress code policy. I called to see how could I assist in making some improvements to the policy. Unfortunately, I was not considered, not given an explanation to why. Well, obviously there is a problem with the dress code policy with the most recent incident that just happened. And now we're looking at having it revised. But my concern is, if it doesn't include individuals on that policy committee team, that represent the diversity of our school district will continue to have the same issues. Thank you for listening.
Ms. Lenora Tolfas, how do you say your last name? Tollefson, thank you.
What I'm giving out, if y'all would like it, it's
Sure.
in the report.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Lenora Tollefson. I'm the Director of Programs for Keep Pearland Beautiful. Keep Pearland Beautiful, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. We do quite a bit partnership with the school district, and we just want to say thank you. We had a great year this year. As you can see, we do have our kids in Pearland preserving the environment through responsible service in 3 middle schools. They work so hard all year round to take track of their recycling program within the school. We have Rogers, Alexander, and Jameson. We have amazing teachers. Marty Gibson at Alexander Middle School was awarded Teacher Educator of the Year with Keep Pearland Beautiful, so shout out to her. And we recognize 15 of the Kipper students for Youth Environmentalist Award through Keep Pearland Beautiful at their breakfast. And we thank the school district for allowing us to use the school to host that. We also have a Youth Environmental Council, which is high school students, sophomore through seniors. We had 10 students that were Pearland ISD students. They worked on 3 projects, kind of focusing on litter prevention with cigarette butts. They're at the level where we're giving them everything that they need to do to try to be successful and trying to help and beautify the community, because that's one of our missions. They did that within Dawson. They did a 2-week technology, which was just more like the cords, headphones, recycling drive. They collected 67 pounds, and you think about headphones and cords, that's a lot for them. And they toured different things. They learned. They did a plastic recycling campaign all by themselves. So 4 of our seniors, we have Eric Lee, who's going to Harvard. We have Alyssa Cohoy and Vanchika Johansa going to Rice. And then we have Reagan Owens, who is going to BYU in Hawaii. So we're super proud of them, and y'all should be too. They're amazing students. On top of that, we do host a Joe Miller Environmental Scholarship. This year, we gave out 7 scholarships to 7 students, totaling $20,000. With the 11 years, we've given out $92,000 worth of scholarships. We have an event coming up this June to add more money to that pot so that we can give out more scholarships. We've visited 3 Pearland ISD schools. We kind of educated on recycling processes. We did an activity with the school as well. We also hosted for the first time Pearland High School Life Skills. They had their 18 and up volunteers come out and work within the recycling center so they can learn different skills for when they go off to jobs. So we're excited to extend that program over to the next school year. We do school recycling runs. We pick up plastic bottles and cans from 15 schools. We actually extended our paper recycling into Magnolia Elementary School, provided them all their teachers with bins to collect paper and paper shredding. We provide that for the school district for free. About 21,000 pounds of paper came through this entire school year. That's kind of including the teachers that come at the end of the year, end of the semester, that want to shred their stuff. And so Keep Pearland Beautiful investment to the Pearland education is about $42,000. We want to thank y'all for our partnership.
Thank you. Okay. Jonathan Tagsip.
Hi, I'm Jonathan, a student at Salvatura Middle School. You won't believe it, but I used to be shy. If you put me on stage, you better prepare a funeral. But now, look at me. I chose GT Academy because when I heard about the advanced education at the GT Academy, I was so excited. It's always been boring in school, and now I get challenged. We were told that GT Academy had advanced learning, and as soon as I entered school, I loved it. The clubs, the mini courses, and advanced learning. This is how this change impacted me. Suddenly, math somehow got boring. I got really bored, and you know what happens when GT kids get bored. I had to learn math in coding classes, and Mrs. Muller let me create an animation club, and I was able to make it into a mini course, and I entered robotics just so I won't be bored. I also studied calculus at SmartCore Labs so I could learn advanced math. What could have happened if I didn't choose GT Academy? I would have been relearning the same stuff over and over again in the classroom. I wouldn't have a challenge. I would not have the beautiful education I have now, well, used to have. The GT Academy is very important for the next generation. Isn't the next generation supposed to surpass the first? I think that they should. Imagine skyscrapers in the 1200s and straw huts now. As learning advances, so will the GT Academy. GT kids can learn a lot more and become the leaders of tomorrow. The advanced classes are very important. Number 1, don't make a GT kid bored. Some of you already know that. They get rowdy, they misbehave. But if you give them a challenge, they sit down and do it. And the GT Academy loves challenges. Number 2, the GT Academy will make the leaders of tomorrow. GT kids strive to get past and beyond. The harder it is, the more refined we are. We will be more trained for the real world. And once we get loose, we'll take the world. And thank you to my GT Academy teachers, Mrs. Klein-Smith, Miss Maldonado, and Miss Singleton. Thank you to Mrs. Muller and our GT Academy specialists for supporting me. Thank you to the GTAB and our community. And I thank all the staff that handles and supports the GT Academy kids. Thank you very much. And I yield the rest of my time to Arwen Jackson.
I'm not Arwen Jackson, by the way. But hello, I am Jessica Williams. I am a current junior at Dawson High School, and I'm either rank 1 or rank 2 because that's not set in stone yet. And I am concerned about the change in the math curriculum to remove the 5th and 6th grade math combined option, because I went through this combined option and it was one of the first courses that really challenged me. It gave me a passion and a love for math because I was learning concepts at an advanced rate. I remember going to the 5th grade orientation night, and I was so excited to learn about algebra for the first time. And it makes me sad to think that kids who want to advance may not have this option. Because certainly it's not for everyone, but looking at the test scores across the district, there are a large number of kids, especially in the GT Academy, that are able to advance and want to learn just for the love of learning. And that was the first course that allowed me to be engaged and even competitive in math between the various math and science competitions like TMSCA, AMC, and Math Counts wouldn't be possible if we moved accelerating to a later date in the curriculum. Because my parents sent me to the GT Academy to be challenged because I wanted to be challenged and I wanted to accelerate more. And having 5th and 6th grade combined allowed me and gave me the flexibility to skip pre-algebra after that and take Algebra 1 as a 7th grader and then geometry as an 8th grader. And geometry as an 8th grader was really fundamental to my education because it allowed me to make high school friends, get familiar with the school, and prepared me for chemistry and physics. And that's what I worry about with moving the accelerated math to 7th grade and combining pre-algebra, is that pushes geometry later, and having to take geometry over the summer or with Algebra 2 in order to advance further would threaten your foundation in chemistry and physics, because not understanding trigonometry makes it difficult to combine forces. But because I had this 5th and 6th grade program, I didn't have to double up as a freshman to stay ahead in math. It gave me the flexibility to take computer science and explore my interests in there. And you may say that it's too hard, but it gives you flexibility to have that combined 5th and 6th grade program. It makes you more competitive. It allows the kids who want to be challenged, gives them a challenge, and I would not be where I am today without it. So please consider keeping that option in. Thank you. I yield the rest of my time to Arwen Jackson.
Wow, such an incredible speaker. What a great example of the best of the GT Academy kids right there. I don't think there's many kids that can get up there and do that. Okay, my name is Arwen Jackson. I have go ahead, 4 kids who've graduated from, 4 kids who have graduated from Pearland. And I have 4 kids who are in or graduated out of the GT Academy Booster Club. Most of the issues I speak to you today do not personally affect my children, but I do think that they're very important. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you. I'm really hopeful that we've reached a point in this situation that we can get some answers to some questions that, frankly, we've been asking for 8 months that we haven't got the answer to. I wanted to say thank you to all the other GT Academy and Advanced Education and GT parents who are here. Can you please stand up if you're here about this issue? If you have a kid? Okay, so we have a fair amount of people. As I'm sure you've gotten the feedback, it is challenging to get here and be here at 5 p.m. for many people. I got so many texts and phone calls and emails from people saying, I really wish I could be there. I just can't. I can't get from downtown, etc. So I'm very thankful for the people that took the time to be here. I wanted to start with a little story because, as Tyrion Lannister in Game of Thrones says, there's nothing in the world more powerful than a good story. Nothing can stop it. So even if you're not happy with the ending, I still liked it. Jonathan did speak. I didn't know the order how we'd be doing this, but Jonathan did speak, and I did want to tell you a little bit about both of those kids. When he does, his parents aren't on Facebook, so he didn't get to hear a lot of the information that was being thrown around a whole bunch this semester about the math curriculum issue. But when we asked for parents to come and speak about the GT Academy, his parents contacted me right away and said he loves the Academy. He will speak and talk about how much he loves it all day long. And then I was talking with his mother, and I said, by the way, what grade is he in? For all I knew, he was a high school student at this point. And she said he's a 5th grader. And I said, okay, well, out of curiosity, who did Jonathan have for math? And he said Klein Smith. And I said, okay. I said, did you know or realize that the other math teacher, there's 2 math teachers in 5th grade at the GT Academy. The other math teacher in 5th grade taught 5th and 6th grade math, while his teacher taught only 5th grade math. And that's just a little dip into this situation. And she said, no, I did not know that. And that's very upsetting to me because I was bored, as Jonathan told you. I found myself not challenged by the math class. I had to go to other avenues, and his grade did slip. Now, for a GT Academy kid, a grade slipping is a 90. But for a GT kid, that's very upsetting, especially when it's their favorite course. It is upsetting that he, by luck of the draw, ended up in a class that wasn't accelerating to that way. And because his parents were not on the Facebook group, he did not know that in order to accelerate and potentially go into 7th grade, he's got to go in the middle of the summer and take a CBE, which is what now the district / administration / school is telling us that these kids have to do. I will tell you that my biggest thing here is that we absolutely, positively have to take that away from this situation. Not only is this situation very messed up, I'm barely touching the surface, but having these parents have to have found out about the CBE when none of this was communicated from the district. Now, keep in mind that even though this was only told to people anecdotally, we have 112 kids signed up to take a CBE. So we have been communicating, but it's not from the district, and it's not from the school. Sorry, I get a little bit worked up about this. It's not even my kids, but I get worked up about it. I did want to say one more thing about Jonathan. I asked his mother, what school would you have gone to if you did not pull out and go to the academy? And he said Alexander. And I said, I got a little bit more bad news for you. If you had gone to Alexander, you would have been taught 5th and 6th grade math. because this policy was not done uniformly for whatever reason throughout the district. Alexander taught 5th and 6th grade math concurrently to the advanced path/GT cluster kids. That is not something that Jonathan's parents want to hear.
30 seconds, Ms. Jackson.
Okay. All with my yielded time, I still only have 3 seconds? Okay. Well, that is just what I have then, if I am not able to speak anymore. But I believe that encapsulates what I have. I gave you all a packet. It's got all the questions, concerns, timelines, everything, and interesting information. So please, if there's questions in there, we would love to have answers to that. And we definitely would not like these parents to have to take the CBE. We want other metrics to be used so that that is not put upon them. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. That concludes public comment. The board right now is going to convene into closed meeting to discuss items presented on the agenda. No voting will take place in the closed meeting. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussions in closed session will take place after the board reconvenes in the open meeting. It is now 5:36. Okay, the board will reconvene in open session at 6:19 p.m. No action was taken in closed session. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion, I move to accept that we approve the superintendent's recommendation for employment of personnel as presented.
Motion made by Ms. Carbone and a second by Mr. Floyd. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-4, 0 against. Any other motion?
I make a second motion that we move to accept and approve the superintendent's recommendation to name Rebecca Morris, principal of Challenger Elementary.
So I have a motion by Ms. Carbone and a second by Mr. Botkin. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-4 and 0 against. Dr. Kelly?
Madam President, members of the board, I'd like to introduce, I think we have some of those folks here with us in the audience. First, the brand new principal of Challenger Elementary, I think she goes by Becky Morris. Would you stand and be recognized, Becky?
Welcome aboard.
Becky comes to us from Deer Park, and we love stealing their best people, so.
That's good. Yay.
The second one is Barry Miller Junior High. Now that the assistant principal has been moved into the principal slot, we have an assistant principal opening, and we are very proud that, and I believe she's here also, we are hiring Dawn Thomas. Dawn, are you here?
Welcome.
She's behind that.
Okay.
I couldn't see. All right.
This wasn't approved by the board. It's a non-contract position, but an extremely important one to the board as well as to the rest of us, and that is we have a new purchasing director. Her name is Latrina Bobb. Latrina, would you stand up?
Welcome.
And finally, we have a brand new assistant principal at Carlston Elementary, and she is Maria Rivera. Maria, are you here? And I believe that's all. Okay, that's it.
Congratulations to all of you and welcome into your new spots. Okay, we're going to do open.
Yes, if you would please stand, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance real quick.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
If you would please remain standing just for a moment, we're going to do a quick moment of silence where you can pray or remember our service members and just meditate. Thank you. Thank you all so much. I want to give a brief update. I know you're all here to watch us deliberate on school board stuff, but I want to give an update on what Pearland ISD is doing and a little maybe what's going to happen in the future. This year we started doing town halls. We did one a couple of months ago. We'll do one a couple of months from now. Me and Secretary Barry and Crystal, Trustee Carbone, we met with some students and listened to them and heard from them and what we can do better about what's going great right now and how we can improve as a district. There are changes coming to our dress code, to our district in general over the summer, and we'll work those things out and let you know beforehand. We're always working on making Pearland even better than it is right now, which is hard to do because this year we were named number 3 in the state of Texas out of districts of our size and capacity, which is fantastic. This year, 2019, we also had the state legislative body in session, which has been a huge thing for us. We were, I believe, one of the first times in Pearland's history, I don't know, but I travel to Austin quite often. I never see full school boards talk to their state legislators and senators. We, all 7 of us, including Dr. Kelly, were there advocating for better education reform, which is so important right now in Texas. HB 3, which is the primary education bill that's passing through the House right now, and the Senate is being negotiated in its final stages. We're working to make sure, and if any of you could advocate for that they use the past year's tax rates when they consider how much funding goes in. I know it's very complicated. It's going to maybe lead to more STAR testing, which I'm not in support of, but and lead to more GT funding, which I am in support of. So it just goes to show that even if we don't agree with everything that a bill does, if it does better than what's happening right now, it's still good, and we've got to support it. Again, I always say progress is better than, I'm sorry, we can't let perfection get in the way of progress, which I think is good for government. HB 29, which was just considered, which would have not allowed us to go to Austin and advocate for those things, has just failed in the House. That's fantastic, so we can go and represent our community in the Capitol. The last thing, because I know that you're all here to recognize some amazing students, I want to congratulate you on your child or your loved one getting this award. I've been in this district from my pre-K years all the way through 12th grade, and I only got this award one time. So if your child is being awarded tonight or being awarded again many repeated times, I know that sometimes we see the same kids come up and receive these awards. I mean, just really a great job on being good parents. You know, school boards and districts and teachers can do a lot of stuff, but nothing beats great parents who are encouraging their kids to learn. So I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of your children's lives. I know it's something that shouldn't have to be thanked, but is unfortunately something that we have to recommend and commend. As always, when I give opening remarks, I want to open the floor to my colleagues if they want to say anything. But before I do that, I want to congratulate and welcome back to the board Secretary Barry, Trustee Bakken, and President Decker, and congratulate them on their recent elections. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
If I may, Trustee Floyd, I'd just like to take a moment to remember Santa Fe ISD. It's only 3 days ago that they celebrated, what a horrible word. Memorialized in memory of the 10 that were, the tragedy that occurred and the 10 that their lives were taken that day. So I do celebrate Santa Fe ISD, and I celebrate their community and coming together through that tragedy and standing strong, and my heart and thoughts and prayers continue to go out to that ISD just south of us.
You know, Crystal, I'd like to add a little bit of bragging about our people. Our counselor force went down there on the 1 year, well, they were there when the original incident happened, but then they went down on this last Friday to be with the students and staff. And one of the things that they're adopting Santa Fe wide is the RISE mentoring program under a different name, but essentially they have decided to go full throttle and basically relied on Mandy Benedicts and our people to guide them as they set that up, which I think will have long-term positives for that community.
Fantastic.
Right.
Okay, so this is our favorite time during the board meeting.
Good evening. Now comes the time that we love to recognize our students and our staff for their achievements. Parents, please feel free when your student comes across to shake hands with the board, come up, grab a photo, and we'll, I think, be doing some more photos afterward in the lobby. This past month, we actually had 2 students who achieved almost the impossible by getting perfect scores on the ACT. The ACT test is comprised of 4 multiple choice subject areas: English, math, reading, and science, with an optional writing section. Each section and the composite is scored on a scale of 1 to 36. The composite scores the average of the students' 4 required test areas. From Dawson High School with a perfect ACT score, we have Chinmay Walavakara. And Jessica Williams. Or 2. Recently, Pearland ISD 7th graders achieved the top honor called Grand Recognition in the 2018-19 Duke University Talent Identification Program. Grand Recognition honorees scored at or above 680 in math and 670 in evidence-based reading and writing on the SAT at 7th grade. On the ACT, these students earning Grand Recognition must score at or above 31 in English, 29 in math, 31 in reading, and 28 in science for a composite score of 28 or above. From Pearland Junior High West, we have Isabel Hildebrandt, Layla Scott, Zoya Siddiqui, Wende Wang, next, we'd like to recognize students who excelled at the State Future Problem Solvers competition. This program stimulates critical and creative thinking skills, encourages students to develop futuristic vision, and prepares them for leadership roles. From Alexander Middle School, placing 2nd as a junior alternate, we have Karen Truong. From Sablatura Middle School, placing 1st as a junior alternate, we have Sophie Gonzalez. From Dawson High School, placing 1st in Middle Texas two-step individual, Alan Zhang. Placing 2nd in middle individual, Cordelia Lee. Placing 2nd in senior individual, Ashwin Murali. Part of the 4th place senior team, Ayush Dave. Also part of the 4th place senior team, McCaniel Zhao. And the Future Problem Solvers team is coached by Alicia Alexander and Judy Sis and Susan Henson here with us. This April, we had several students who stood out when they won at the state HOSA competition and qualified for international competition. HOSA programs and competitions help our students who are pursuing healthcare careers build industry knowledge and leadership skills. Winners at the state competition and who will be competing at International HOSA Conference in Dallas in late June include, from Turner College and Career High School, who placed third in clinical nursing and also earned the Barbara James Award for recognition, we have Ashley Den. From Turner College and Career High School, placing third in medical reading, Lindsay McPhail. Placing fourth in job seeking skills from Turner High School, Julia Mia. And the host and sponsor from Turner is Karen Wonders. Now we recognize students who stood out in the State Skills USA competition this spring. The Skills USA is a partnership of students, teachers, and industries working together to ensure a skilled U.S. workforce. First, the Automotive Quiz Bowl team took third place, and members of the team who could be with us tonight include Jaden Isabel, Ruben Zavala, and they are from PHS. And then from Turner, we have Eric Hopner, also placing in the top 3 of their categories from Pearland High School, who placed first in cabinet making division of job exhibits and second in construction materials identification, Doug Lavati. Also from Pearland High School, placing second in construction materials identification, Justin Hopman. And these students are taught by Steve Hall and Jeff Woodruff from Pearland High School, and they are with us this evening. The Pearland ISD Architecture, Construction, and Engineering, or ACE, mentorship team recently captured second place in the Houston ACE competition in April. Participating for the second year, this team faced off against 28 other Houston area teams. 13 mentors lead the team in the project development and career exploration of architecture, construction management, and engineering. The team chose to design a transportation hub that would reduce congestion in the Houston downtown area by connecting several transportation modes. Members of the team with us tonight from Turner High School include Caleb Lira, Adrian Astorga, Nathan Ramos, Angel Nava, Sharice Beavers, and Justin Nguyen. And from Pearland High School, Jeffrey Sosa and Alex Valdez. And from Dawson High School, I'm probably going to mess up your last name, Connie Maknikavasukum. Close? Maknikavasukum. Congratulations. And the ACE mentorship team at Turner is taught by Miss Lillian Wilson. Now we'd like to recognize students who excelled at the Texas Art Education Association State Visual Art Scholastic event in April. Advancement to the state VASE is the highest level of achievement in the visual arts in Texas. Students who received a gold medal at state VASE with us this evening from Dawson High School receiving a gold medal, Jamie Lincoln. The Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo School Art Program draws more than 300,000 entries each year. During the show, approximately 60 pieces of art are selected by the judges and auctioned off for student awards and the rodeo's educational fund. This spring, 7 of our students won awards for their artwork during rodeo art judging. These artists Their works were displayed at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo's Hayloft Gallery. From C.J. Harris, Best of Show, Kenzie Peterson. From C.J. Harris with a gold medal, Avery Reeves. And their art teacher is Kathy Harmon. From Pearland Junior High West with a gold medal, Sophia Fu. And Best of Show, Chelsea Tran. And their art teacher is Miss Krista George. And from Dawson High School receiving Best in Show, Nadisha Edward. Receiving Best in Show, Katie Gu. And awarded Class Reserve Painting and also receiving a rating 4 at the State Vase Competition, Helen Wang. Finally, we recognize high school students who've excelled in their athletic fields. These student athletes soared to new heights in track and field this year. From Dawson High School, who placed first in regionals at both the shot put and the discus, holds a school record in both as well. And she placed third in the discus at the state meet. We have Crystal Herpin. Placing third in regionals in the 100 hurdles, Amari Ferguson. And the Dawson's girls track is coached by Troy Myers and Xavier Jackson. At this time, I'd like to invite Superintendent Dr. Kelly up for a special presentation.
Well, this is a great honor for me to present. We're recognizing someone who is retiring and who I believe, and I think a lot of people that know here in this room and elsewhere, might describe this recipient as perhaps having the most profound positive impact on Pearland ISD student achievement, at least in the last 20 years, and particularly in the area of reading. So we do not want her to go into retirement without us at least acknowledging someone who has performed unbelievably for us. So I'd like to ask from the curriculum and instruction side, from that department, if Noelle Gray would come forward. This is presented to Noelle Gray in appreciation for your dedicated service to the students and staff of Pearland ISD Board of Trustees 2018 through 19. And can I get you to say just a few words?
Thank you very much, and it's been an honor all these years, 38 years total, 22 in Pearland, and I feel blessed and I feel thankful for the opportunities that Pearland has offered me to follow my passion of literacy for all. It's meant the world to me. It's an honor and a privilege to be of service and to do what I could do for students, teachers, principals, specialists, and I've had so much support along the way. I couldn't have done it without the team behind me, the leadership beside me to help me really do the things that we wanted to accomplish for student achievement in Pearland. And I will miss it dearly, and I know God has another calling for me, and so I'm listening and waiting to see what's next, and I'm ever thankful.
Well, we hope that calling is coming back to us for part of the time. I'd also like to recognize her long and faithful husband who's been a member of our Board of Trustees, Sam Gray. Sam, would you stand? Be recognized as well.
Okay, we did not finish all of our business in closed session, so the board is going to convene back into closed session at 6:45 p.m. Okay, the board is going to reconvene in open session at 7:17 p.m. No action was taken in closed session. Is there a motion on the table?
Madam President, I have a motion.
Yes.
I move that the Board of Trustees elect Charles Gooden as President of the Board, Lance Botkin as Vice President of the Board, and Rebecca Decker as Secretary of the Board.
Okay, I have a motion on the table. Have a
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Gooden. The motion made by Mr. Floyd. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-4 and 0 against. All right.
All right.
It's you.
You know, it's Rebecca, thank you very much for your service. You brought us through. It was a difficult 3 years. You climbed a lot of mountains. You had 6 people in your ear all the time about 6 different things they wanted to do, and I just appreciate you listening to me. You didn't always do what I told you to do, but that's not, you weren't supposed to. But thank you for your service. Thank you. All right, consent agenda. Items 1 through 10, is there anything that any trustee would like to pull? Anything to be pulled? Hearing nothing? Yo, yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I do want to pull 7,
Item 7.
security class.
Okay. 7.
All right, Mr. President, I have a motion
Sir,
to approve consent agenda items 1 through 6 and 8 through 10.
motion by trustee Floyd, is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Decker. Any further discussion? If not, let's call for the vote. All those in favor? All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Okay, trustee Carbone, item 7, approve contract for competitive sealed proposal for window safety film.
Yes. So I just, we asked some questions earlier today, but I wanted it on public record since we didn't have a chance to talk about in the public session about where the security class is going and where that installation and then what our timeline is for completion.
Crystal and John, I think the timeline is very good to discuss. I'm a little leery about going into too much specifics about where, realizing that it's a security issue, that
Okay.
a potential So John, maybe share the timeline.
Sure.
or general
Timeline, our
approach.
goal is to finish it all this summer. It's a very aggressive schedule, but that is our goal.
Okay. So we'll get an update if there's any change that should it not be completed by the front of the school year, we'll know about that somehow.
Yes.
Okay.
And Crystal will be glad to answer any remaining questions privately with the trustees on where and all that.
That's fair. Thank you. That's it. So I recommend or make a motion that the Board of Trustees approve the proposal submitted by the Enpro Group for the procurement and installation of window safety film for district campuses in the amount of $415,237.
Second. Motion Carbone, second Murphy. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor? Raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
For security film?
All right, we'll be moving on to the regular agenda. Item 1, consideration to approve a bond order authorizing the issuance of Pearland ISD Unlimited Tax School Building Bond Series 2019A.
John and Dan, would you come up and help us through this? While they're doing that, I think everybody knows this, but essentially what we're talking about here is selling the last $20 million of the bonds that were approved by the voters in 2016. And the reason we're doing it tonight, or part of the reason, is that, as Georgiani has pointed out, we're going to start needing those funds, and in some cases even before the July date that we sell them. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. John, the floor is yours. You want to explain?
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Members of the board, again, John Roebuck of BOK Financial Securities. We do have a presentation, which I just passed out. Before we get started, I do want to introduce Dan Martinez. He's your bond counsel. He's the one who drafted the order we're asking you to approve tonight for the $20 million in bonds to be sold. If you'll turn to page 1 of the presentation, this is the bond buyer index. Again, this is the weekly average of municipal bonds across the country. And if you'll notice on the far right, the rate is currently at 3.57%. Rates have come down considerably since the start of the year. Economic talk, trade wars with China. It's a great time to sell bonds. There's very little volume in the market right now. With the Tax Act that passed in late 2017, refunding bonds are hard to come by, so bond issues are small and they're hard to see in the market. So there's a lot of investors out there willing to buy bonds, and as a result, rates have dropped. On this page 2, we have your estimated debt service requirements. Based on current market rates, we're showing the district can issue $18,615,000 in bonds to generate the $20 million in proceeds, and that is net of interest costs. That fits right into what we were planning initially after the last bond sale, which you'll see on page 3, the tax rate impact analysis. After the last sale, I think we showed you right at 6 cents, maybe a 6.15 cent increase for the bond program. We told voters 7, so we're coming in below that. But with this bond sale, we believe we can actually knock it back down to 6 cents, so basically a 1 penny decrease from what we told voters from the 2016 bond election. Obviously, with the rates the way they are, this is the reason we can do it. We're able to reduce the impact. And to get this done, if you'll turn to page 4, this is a tentative schedule of events. Back in April, with anticipation that you'd approve the order tonight, we filed an application with the TEA for the Permanent School Fund Guarantee, so we can sell these bonds with a AAA rating, which is the highest rating available out there. We've actually already started on the first draft of POS, which is this document here. This is the document that goes to investors to basically solicit interest in buying your bonds. And we'll have rating calls, diligence calls with underwriters, and then we'll price the bonds. We're tentatively scheduled for the week of June 17th, probably that Tuesday. Let people come in on Monday, pre-market, and purchase the bonds on Tuesday, and then close about a month later after Dan works with the Attorney General and gets everything approved. And at that date, we'll have the funds available for you guys to start your projects, $20 million in funds. We are asking you to approve a parameter order tonight, which basically limits the maximum amount of the bond issue to $20 million, not to exceed 30 years in length, and also not to exceed a 5% interest rate on the bonds, which will come in well below that. So.
What our rating is AA?
Right, it's AA. Actually, I don't have it right here. I think it's AA minus and AA AAA would be PSF.
Right.
So you're in a great place for school
Yeah.
district.
Okay, all right, Mr. Roebuck, we were just making sure that the recommendation for action as written in the packet covers the parameter order that you need and everything.
It
It's all
does.
there? Okay.
I believe so. Yes, sir. We've reviewed it.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, ma'am.
Move that the board approves an order authorizing the issuance of Pearland Independent School District unlimited tax school building bonds, Series 2019A, entering into a purchase contract and a paying agent register agreement, delegating to certain district administrative staff and officials the authority to approve all final terms of the bonds and other matters related to their
Second.
All right, motion, Ms. Decker, second, Mr. Floyd. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's call for the vote. All those in favor? All opposed, right, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. We appreciate your help.
Thank y'all.
Thank
Appreciate
you very
it.
much. All right. All right, item 2 on the regular agenda.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, this is consider to approve a resolution declaring intention to reimburse certain expenditures with borrowing proceeds. The law requires that if we are going to start making purchases in advance of receiving the $20 million, that we need this resolution in place that says essentially when we get the $20 million, we will reimburse our reserve fund for any of those expenditures. And what Georgiani has pointed out is that we're getting much closer to the end of these projects, and so we're getting close to spending the $220 million. So any questions or?
No, we need a motion. I'll make the motion. The Board of Trustees approve the resolution declaring the intention to reimburse certain expenditures with borrowing proceeds.
Motion, Mr. Murphy, second, Mr. Bakken. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. All right, on to the rig. Item 3, consideration to approve an additive option for the rig facade.
Yes, Mr. President and members of the board, I'd like to invite, John and Don to come forward and explain. You may remember that when you approved the original scope for the rig facade, you also said, go and tell us what another $1 million would do to enhance that facade. And so they've done some work with our architect, Jeff, who's also here, and they'll explain to you, Architect Jeff.
Yeah, I think with that intro, back in February, you approved us $2.7 million for the rig facade. But as Dr. Kelly said, you asked us, well, what could we do if we wanted to spend another $1 million? So Jeff Chapman is here to present some different options. I will tell you that we're predicting that we'll bring a GMP to you for this project in September. So right now it's just an estimated cost. You need to, the decision is yours tonight on whether 2.7 or 3.7 or something else if you like. But I'll let Jeff Chapman present the options that we put together.
Good evening, board.
Good evening,
thank you for the opportunity. Oh, perfect. So, in February, we brought you this option, and this was the 2.7 additional for the extended press box and kind of that middle scope. And we're asked to see what we could do for an extra $1 million. And so the first thing we thought about was the corners seem to be a lot of the focal point. The stadium is kind of skewed from the road, and so putting something on the corners would give you some presence from Oyler Drive. And so this is the option that we came up with. And then here's the view from Oyler Drive to give it a little bit of presence.
And that's just a freestanding wall,
That is a freestanding wall,
not connected at all to the stands.
not connected at all to the stands.
But it ties in the gates and stuff at the bottom, correct?
ties into gates and stuff at the bottom. And so basically, we're just, because of the soils and the amount of structure, this is what we feel like we can get for $1 million. So then we looked at another option where we had kind of a uniform appearance where we bring everything up higher, but it's more uniform across the front. Here's the option from Euler Drive. So we felt like the biggest part of the facade was trying to brand the stadium for both high schools. So we thought to ourselves, what if we just do a whole lot more graphics? And so for about $150,000, we can just cover the whole thing with graphics. And so this, what you're seeing right now, would be $1 million plus the $150,000 for a whole lot more graphics.
So let me ask you this, with those columns, is there lighting include?
No, sir.
LED lighting? So what's that right at the base of that? It's just something you're putting there, is that light shooting up where it hits up Pearland ISD or anything?
Not in this option, not for $1 million. It's a whole bunch of brick, steel, concrete.
No, it does not include any kind of lighting or anything to show
That-
off the district.
That's correct.
We're doing a district stadium.
And this still includes the rearranging of the plaza, ticket booth, entrances, all that good stuff?
That's included kind of
That's
in the 2.7 additional that we got previously. So here's the option with the more graphics on that second scheme. And so basically over the last 3 years I've been talking to you guys about this project. It seems like you guys really wished there was a separate project to really do the facade well. And so the graphic option is kind of a way of dressing you up for 5 to 7 years, and then we can have this conversation again in 5 to 7 years and figure out something as a part of your next bond, because 5 to 7 years from now you'll be hitting your 10-year cycle for your next whatever you do. And so we felt like it was a way to make it a district stadium, make a big presence, but at the same rate not feel like you're spending a whole lot of money on it. Because like Mr. Berry, Mr. Murphy have hinted, maybe this is not the permanent district stadium, and so we don't want to put a whole lot of money into it. And so we're just trying to figure out another way that you could get a lot of bang for your buck without, because we actually looked at about 18 schemes in April and in May for you guys, trying to get down to that $1 million. And so everything that we looked at that we felt looked really great cost $2 million, $2.5 million, $3 million, which we didn't feel like, based on our previous conversations, were things we wanted to even show you. So these are the $1 million schemes that we were directly asked to provide you.
Can you look at slide 129 and tell me what the difference is between, or actually you were just right on it, 132 is fine. So if you see on the end of this facade, you got the gates have a wide, in the end it has a wide brick all the way to your left, right there.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you go back to the budgeted amount that we approved for you to draw, it's not there. Is that just the way the
No,
graph-
it's this.
where yeah, okay. So it's just a different view, that's the same thing, it's just a different view.
No. So you look, see kind of where my cursor is here?
Right.
When I come to the third scheme,
It's
see
a
how much
big-
bigger it is?
Yes, it's bigger.
Bigger. That's the $1 million more.
Middle or bigger, taller.
Okay.
That's the $1 million extra.
All of those brick things are bigger than what you would and taller.
That's one option?
That's one option. That's what we're calling option 2.
Okay. And just to be clear, Dr. Kelly, when we approved them to draw this, we approved the 2.7.
Yes, sir. We previously approved the 2.7, and then you all said, go see what $1 million can do for us. Jeff, were you suggesting with your previous comments that essentially go with the banners only now and then come back to this later rather than options 1 and 2 with the brick corners and all that?
Based on what I'm seeing and what I know Lance really wants and what I know Jeff and Sean have said that they have wanted, it just seems like any of these schemes are not going to feel great for this amount of money. Anything that you guys wanted was going to be in that $2 to $4 million range. It's just a whole lot of brick. It's a whole lot of masonry. It's a whole lot of steel. It's a whole lot of concrete because it's a giant stadium. And so I just felt like you guys were really struggling with doing something really permanent now that wasn't going to be something you'd be proud of, because this is the one building in your school district that everybody uses. I mean, everybody uses the rig at some point, whether they're in band, in drama, you know, they come as a sport fan, cheerleaders, whatever. And so we just couldn't, you know, mathematically, there's just too much stuff to, you know, all of those schemes that we showed last year with all the lit banners and the LED lights, kind of like Alvin has in their new district stadium. It's just not in the budget that you guys were comfortable spending. And so we looked at one, we didn't even know it was $150,000. We were just like, what if we just graphic the whole thing to make it really feel like a district stadium, cover up the stuff that you guys want covered up, and go from there.
That windscreen was in.
It's windscreen, yes, sir. And
then-
we've done it at a couple of stadiums. It's not like you'll be the guinea pig on doing this much.
So, let me ask, what, get the Orla Drive view on any one of them? So as you go down that gateway, all the way to the ticket booth now,
Mm-hmm.
has there been any discussion about what's gonna happen there?
You'll have the brick columns just like that.
All the way, take out that ticket booth is there now?
So I think the ticket booth is actually past, like you can't actually see it on this view.
I
It's,
know where it is, I'm saying what's gonna happen to it. I'm not, maybe that's not you, maybe that's for somebody else to answer.
Coach Pardo thought he would open it up as like a snack concession
Okay.
stand.
But we're gonna keep it, but they're just gonna tie it all in, because the gating and all that stuff's gonna be tied into
You're not-
that whole.
you're not
right now it's
touching
chain
that.
link fence, right?
Right now it's chain link fence. We'll be doing new ornamental metal.
Ticket booth over, there's gonna be this black, nice,
So in the first project that we're working on right now, we have money to bring that ornamental fence around to kind of where we're gonna stop for the phase 2 project. So when we're done, everything, there will be no more chain link fence.
Okay.
It will all be the ornamental metal. That's a good question. But some of that's in the current project.
The original ticket stand is going to stay there.
Coach Pardo mentioned that there's a need during halftime for additional concessions because of the amount of people that all come over there, and if they could sell something that, you know, like your non-perishables, like your see here, Cokes or stuff that doesn't require heating and cooking, he could sell them out of the ticket booth and have people go, not all crush underneath the stadium during the halftime rush.
Okay, so that's staying. Is it gonna be touched as all as far as this facade, or is it gonna look just like it does now?
Right, because that won't even match.
So, I mean, we could tear it down. It's not that much to tear it down, but it's not really, you know, it's a Coach Pardo
But right now,
conversation.
you don't plan to touch it right now, aside from the fence.
Not in any of these options.
Cool.
And Jeff, to Mr. Tillis's point, just to be clear, so again, we're looking at an estimated cost of $1 million, but if, you know, we have still have a trade war with China with steel and some of the other stuff, that $1 million could be pushed up much further, right?
We're comfortable with it, but
Yeah.
you're exactly right.
GMP could come in a lot higher.
Steel has been a very turbulent commodity as of late, and this is a lot of steel.
Yeah.
Okay, so going with what we're looking at right now, you've got the $2.7 million option. The actual main ticket entrance will be in the middle, here what we're looking at, under the Pearland ISD sign. That ticket booth that's off towards Orla Drive will still be there. There's no plan to touch the facade on it. It's just gonna look like it does now, right? And that's approving this, that's where we are.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So, okay, if you go to option 1 right there, if, let's just say that we don't, in 5 or 6, 7 years, we don't offer another district stadium, we want to add more to this, is that, could be phase 2? Like tie into that wall and go down the side or something? I don't want to build something and then if we eventually have to keep it, can we continue to make it look better? Or once we do that, we're done? Does that make
So,
sense what I'm
I mean,
asking?
you can always tear down these little, remove the
But then
fence,
you're
come back,
spending money.
come back and do things.
I mean, Rebecca, I know, but I'm saying
No, no, I get you.
originally you're spending.
No, I hear you. No, yeah, but what I'm saying is that if they would have to, they wouldn't add to it, they would knock it down and rebuild it, right? That's what you would say?
No, it's a freestanding. You could do either, right?
Freestanding, right?
So I guess my point is, if you look at it from the side, my whole deal has always been, I wanted to go down the side of like the Dickinson Stadium, right?
Right.
And I wanted to do that and then bring a brick facade to the back. My question is, if we built that right there, is it a possibility to bring and tie that back in to the front and both sides, and to the sides and the, where the banners are, brick that in the future?
Yes, we'll tear down a minimal amount of infrastructure in the middle here, and then probably have to remove and replace some ornamental fence. But that is the one advantage of this sign, is that you're tearing down a lot less to do that additional wall later.
And my point is, if you go with the short one,
Mm-hmm.
you won't have that option, because you already have a tall column there, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
These graphics that are shown on page 131, are they pretty standard for that cost? I mean, $150,000. I mean, could you theoretically wrap around the whole stadium?
We absolutely could. I mean, it's basically a unit
It's up to
cost, and
us,
they
right?
just start printing, and where you tell us to stop, yeah, we could wrap both sides. I mean, there's no, we consulted with the bleacher manufacturer, and they're perfectly comfortable hanging as much of the vinyl, because they're perforated, so the wind blows through them, so they're not creating a load
Right, I get
on the existing structure.
You know, my concern with the rig project, with the way we've proceeded, is that we put a lot of different pieces together at a lot of different times, right? We went beyond the initial bond scope, and we started talking about the press box, and then we started talking about the big facade that we had, right? And then we came back and we reduced that and a lot of other things. And there are other things inside the stadium that deserve our attention, like the bathrooms, and there's just a bunch of other things in there that I think personally would be, if we're gonna put another $1 million, those spaces should probably receive the attention of the other $1 million, or maybe even M&O dollars, or what have you, right? But I think we've done enough on the outside, right? And we couldn't get to where we wanted to get to just because of scarcity, right? Budget constraints. And I think what we've got is a good-looking facade, right? But I don't know about the other $1 million that we put on top of it.
So what if we said no to the big extra $1 million columns, but instead looked at graphic wraparounds?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, so we could.
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, so we're talking about the first option, and then the graphic banners, and then.
No.
Hey, Charles,
But how's that
No
gonna
option
weather?
First
on the
option.
You
graphic
know,
banners
you look
is
current
what I'm
scope.
hearing.
I'm sorry, current scope. I'm sorry, current scope and
graphic banners.
yes.
How are they gonna weather? I mean,
good for about 2 years.
yeah, I mean, so every 2 years we're spending a couple $100,000 replacing them, and
Better than spending $1 million.
It's just,
Yeah,
it's,
I think you're looking at 5 to 7 years on the banners, based on the guys I've talked to. If they only lasted 2 years, I wouldn't recommend it.
looks janky.
It's kind of like what they have on the side of NRG when a rodeo comes, just the big
there's a lot
big
of-
banners down.
Buy ones for
You know, Charles, I will say that
Interchange.
there's a lot of things, like when I walked up, I was at the stadium the other day, I don't know, what was I there for? Oh, spring football. You know, there's this walk-up stuff, sticky stuff that's been there since I don't know when. It needs to be replaced, for people slipping and stuff, yeah. You're right.
Yeah,
Absolutely
and that
correct.
those non-strip,
There's
that's.
There's some things in there that need to
Yeah.
be fixed.
I took a couple pictures. I was there for a track meet.
Yeah.
And you go in that one bathroom, and like the paint's all off. The fixtures haven't been updated since they were built. There's no ceiling tiles in there. Maybe there's a reason for that, but there's no ceiling tiles in there. And if we got $1 million, I think some of those service spaces could probably use some attention. But
I guess my point is, if we're gonna do something, which we're already doing something, we ought to just, like you said, touch it up, make it, everything else look good too. I agree.
$1 million is a roof.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I like the banner idea, no column. Even though I like the columns,
We
but,
have 10 roofs we need to do.
huh?
I'll make a motion that the Board of Trustees go with the 2.7 million current scope and the addition of the banners.
Motion from trustee Carbone,
Second.
second from Mr. Floyd. Any further discussion?
Just,
Yes, sir.
Before you vote on that, are you voting on just the front or the sides too, you know? Just where we're clear.
Say that again?
Front.
Sides of
There,
what?
Front with
there
the
was
graphics or
the
graphics
banners on the
side?
front, but also there was discussion about putting them on the sides also, so.
We didn't see that.
I mean, how much more would that cost in your opinion? I mean,
Incremental.
Probably another 100,000.
I don't see them.
On the side?
That's
No.
not.
No,
well, so 100 for both sides, plus the 154.
You're talking about right here?
you're right.
Yeah, yeah.
Wait, I think that,
Well, you wouldn't put
okay,
them on both sides. You wouldn't see them.
yeah, let me ask,
We're talking about the banners on,
The 150 for the front
Yeah.
banners.
The graphics on the front.
well, Lance, when you were talking about the side, like,
Side banners, I was talking about.
Just the
you
front
talking about brick, were you talking about brick along the side? Okay, yeah, I don't think we were talking about
Well,
banners
I
on the side.
mentioned
But
what
did
would,
you-
what would it be if you put the graphics
If
on
you,
the side
okay,
as well?
sorry about
wrapper.
that, okay. So another, what, another 100 grand?
Just doing a rough middle
Yeah,
square
so-
foot takeoff and some complexities because it's, you know, it's triangular, so we're gonna have to cut some stuff.
Okay. Okay, so trustee Calhoun, your motion is for the initial scope
Yep.
and for the banners here as they're shown,
Yes,
just in the
as
back?
shown. Yep, as
Okay,
shown.
as shown, all right. Would you, Mike, would you want to
I'm
ask for
still,
an
I
amendment?
second the original.
Okay,
motion, so.
okay, stay with that, okay.
Side banners are gonna be done. I know how this is gonna work. Somebody's gonna come out. It's gonna come out Larry Burger's budget, I guarantee you.
Yeah, no, Mr. Berger had a look on his face. I don't think, yeah.
Hey, we gave him his wish
Yes, sir.
list.
But that,
No,
that is a good point. If we're in the middle of discussion that I hadn't considered before, is this is coming out of bond dollars? And do we want to pay interest on something like the flags on the side
five-year
of
product.
the?
That's an excellent, well, 5-year product, but like you said, do we want to use
It's
the
a
credit card
reusable
for it?
product. I mean, do we really want to use those funds for that?
You don't
I
have.
don't know that
you
I
won't
know the
have 'em
answer to
anywhere
it.
else.
Yeah, you're not gonna
No,
have
the
anywhere else.
an-
anywhere else.
In order to be
The
bond, they
answer
gotta
is
be
no.
good for
You don't
3
use
bucks
bond
for
funds
3
for
years.
that.
Yeah.
It's like financing a car for 25 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not right.
And
Just
so
don't
we,
do it.
those other projects that we had, like the gym floor at Jameson, we talked about, yeah, we're not gonna use bond funds for that.
I
So,
would.
yeah.
I don't know if this is working. Or not. I look at bond funds as something that's worthy of being on a capital campaign, that's built for infrastructure, is built for whatever it might be, functionality, feature function, safety, security of our schools and our buildings, right? This, to me, is something that's nice to have, right? It's a very nice to have. $150,000, we can come up with $150,000 out of M&O. In fact, we're going to see later that where we have a little bit of money we can spend, right?
Okay. Are you, Dr. Kelly, are you averse to maybe changing the motion to direct funds for different places to come from different accounts?
Yes, sir. In fact, you know, I talked to Georgiani about this to make sure I'm on the right track, but there's reserve fund balance, there's M&O money, and so on. I was going to add, Charles' earlier point to me is something we can address. Larry says this summer he's going around painting a lot of those areas in the football stadium, and some of the surfaces and other problems we can have the maintenance folks look at first and see if that can just be incorporated as part of our normal maintenance work over there. Now he's going to need a budget for that, as he will quickly remind me, but we can use bond funds or other sources as Georgiani advises.
Trustee Cabrera, are you going to rescind your motion?
I do rescind my motion.
So, the original bond scope includes all those banners that are already on there. Right?
Unless we can.
I mean,
The problem, well, I'll speak,
yeah, go
speaking,
ahead,
but the
please.
problem is you have I mean, Larry's budget has already been cut. You have 100. Where are you going to find 150,000?
hold on. Go back to the original bond, please.
No, but we're talking about.
Go back to the original.
We're talking
picture.
about taking money not from bond funds, but back from general funds or the reserve funds to pay for screens.
For the screens, right?
Go back to the original bond scope picture, please.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay, it's got banners already on there. Why can't we just swap those banners out for the new windscreen banners and give us a discount since we're already spending this much money with BBK and the construction people, it ought to be an even swap for 2.7 million, done, walk, all in, all out, let's walk away. We're not spending 150,000, we're not even talking about it.
I'm not sure Jeff has the power to negotiate that.
I don't know, we already get banners right here, we're already getting 6 banners right there.
But are those banners a part of what you call the $2.7 million?
They are.
And Jeff,
Screens are?
I'll reiterate my point from earlier. So when, with this includes the whole facade, which is where the Oiler and the Eagle logos, correct, are all going up?
Everything in the middle that you see there is
Correct.
included. Correct.
So just like I mentioned earlier, there's still a possibility that all the steel and everything in this GMP could come in higher than 2.7.
It's a possibility.
Yeah. I just want to make sure we're, again, a lot of that is steel, and if it does come in higher, the GMP could come in higher 6 months from now when we bid this out, even though we're scoping it at 2.7. So anything we do, we have to consider.
Well, prime example is the electrical work we're going to discuss later. Prime example. So it's a lot higher than what we anticipated. So
Did we bought these graphics, or were they already there? Could I? These
Excuse
are
me?
New. These graphics.
Nothing has been purchased.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
It's not like they're sitting somewhere.
But those are there, those are part of the.
We have basically a graphics allowance in that 2.7 million that we will work with the graphics company to get those signs printed and made.
And they're the same. They're the same material as the others, or how are these different?
Yes.
So
Okay,
those would
so
have
we
to
have
be
an
replaced
option-
too periodically, right?
Yes.
5 years.
So we have an option for this, for $2.7 million, without spending any additional money. And that is an option, okay? Or we can look at enhanced graphics. And I do agree that, yeah, maybe we don't want to put that on a bond fund, but I do believe that we can find that. There was another reserve for facilities reserve that we discussed last time around, or there's other places in the budget where we can find those dollars. Where are we leaning?
Figure out what those signs are gonna cost, and then we add to it, and then we get what we want. If not,
So is that, well, okay, now we're talking about, you've got $2.7 million, right? So there's a graphics allowance in there. So, all right, without you having to come back with another GMP for this, or rather, take that back, without you having to come back for this, can we look at upsizing the graphic options? And can that be an administrative decision to go if we can find those dollars within the budget that you have right now?
I don't see why not.
You could.
I mean, if you basically tell Larry Berger to get with PBK and get some graphics done because it's M&O funds.
But how does that become an administrative decision?
No, just saying if we can just work it out in the 2.7 million, then they just go with the bigger banners.
He doesn't have any funds.
Yeah, no, we're not asking you for any money, Mr. Berger. Sorry about that.
Basically, what we're saying is it wouldn't come out of the bond program, but he could still work with us in our graphics department to make them look great, and then he just goes and buys them and gets them mounted.
yeah,
Unless it costs more than
Yeah, so
$75,000.
we're talking about where we're going to get $150,000, right?
Yeah.
That's what the discussions come down to, like where we're going to get it from.
spend it.
So,
I don't wanna
I
spend
respect that. I respect that. But I mean, it is, what's the interest on $150,000 over this many years? Is that material that we have to break this thing apart and try to find someplace else, right, to get the money from? I understand the principle behind not using interest-bearing, those funds to get that, but can we get an agreement to take it from reserve?
Yes, Virginia.
Yes, ma'am.
So we also make interest in the capital project funds that we have, and we have made up a little bit of interest. So if you wish for, we're talking about 150,000, depends how much we're talking about, we can cover it with the same capital projects with the interest that has been generated.
So then that's not actual bond funds. It's
No, it's
right.
interest on
It's
the
interest that
bond
we have. So
funds
okay.
that we, yes.
Okay.
But I will say this, that we don't know the outcome of any of our legislative discussions. We currently, the last numbers that we saw, we still have a multi-million-dollar deficit. We have no way to replenish those funds once we spend them. We get rated on a 90-day reserve fund.
So now,
That's my concern.
The question is $150, $50,000
It would not be general fund.
it's not
It
general
would be
fund.
interest generated from the bond money that has been sold, that has been placed in the capital projects fund.
But the reason why we made all the financial decisions we did last year to increase our return on the investments that we made were so that we can offset some of the M&O losses that we could potentially have to pay out throughout the year. It goes back into our
Right, but the interest that you generate in the capital projects funds, you can only use it towards capital projects or to pay debt service. You can't use it for maintenance and operations.
Could it be used for roofs and chillers and generators?
If you
and-
add it to the capital projects, yeah, it's a capital project. If you add it as part of that bond, yes.
So I guess the general question is, do we want these things or not?
Right,
I
and,
mean,
So I'll make another motion.
okay,
I'll make a motion that we move forward with the current bond scope or the current scope as presented, with the banners that are included in this scope.
all right,
And
motion,
if we
Carl.
can,
Second.
if we can upsize those within the same scope that's already been approved, then we can run with that. If not, this is what it is and it's already been approved.
Okay. Which means that if you can get the bigger ones inside the 2.7 million, go for it. If not, don't.
Who's doing this
I
project?
understand.
Stuart?
Stewart.
Stuart.
Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, Mr. Barry, second.
Yeah.
All right.
And I guess that sorry.
Go ahead, yes, sir.
If we wanted to come back later and spend money from another source, we could do so, right? I mean, this is not something that is
And those things are easy to
integral
put
to
on.
the.
So we will be
construction.
back in September with the GMP budget. And the world may, if it's 4 months from now, who knows what's going to happen? We may be at 2.2 million. We may be at, 3.2 million. I don't know. But that will be your last chance in
I got
this
you.
construction project to make any changes to any aspect. Because this is just we've been working with Stewart. They're the CM at risk on the project. They've been providing us budget information. We've been working with them on a weekly basis for like 20 options. So these are not Jeff numbers. These are vendor provided numbers with the best information that we have at the time. And then we will actually get sub bids in August and bring you a GMP in September.
So I think what I'm hearing is that we would do an alternate for the upsize of the screens.
No.
And
Just,
we
If-
bid it, but because we'd have to bid it. So we bring it to you, you would see the pricing for this. And if it turned out it was, say, 2.3 million and you had the additional money, we'd have the pricing for the upsize of the screens. And then you could make a decision whether to go with that or not based on we have final numbers.
And can we also request that any information about that additional press box or the additional ticketing box get communicated to us somehow between now and then, so that if there's additions about what we want to do with that need to be included in that GMP, we can.
Yeah. Or is it just gonna be left?
so PBK does a lot of projects for us, right? They did a lot of projects for us.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, the motion is for option one?
No.
No.
I'm sorry, I keep calling it option one from bond scope.
Current
For scope,
scope.
current scope.
Current scope.
Current scope. All right, current scope, and if we can get the larger banners in for the 2.7, we go with that. There was a motion, Carbone, second, Barry. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, let's call for the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. That is 7-0. Motion carries. All right, thank you.
Thank you
very
for your
much, Mr. Chapman. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for your patience on all this.
John,
Appreciate it.
thank you. All right. Item 4, consideration to approve a public meeting date to discuss the 2019-2020 budget and proposed tax rate.
Yes, there's Mr. President, there's a legal requirement that we just announce in advance and then publish in the newspaper a notice for when we're actually going to adopt at least the initial budget and the proposed tax rate. And so we've already prepared that notice. We were going to stick with the regular date of June 11th, which is when our regular board meeting is. So I would ask that you approve this motion, and then also I'll just add in there, we probably need a board workshop before or on the day of June 11th. This is the most complex year I've ever had, because not only will the legislature not die until next Monday, but then it's probably going to take at least 2 weeks for the experts to figure out what that means for each district and turn it into an accurate spreadsheet. So we're going to be running close to June 11th just with an initial budget that you might have to alter at some point thereafter.
Okay. We can work on that workshop time for the 11th. Is there any questions about that, or is there a motion to set June 11th?
So, just an experience level?
Yeah.
The workshop, we probably need to hammer out, like, because it's usually really hard for us to, either if we want time to discuss it, I think that it needs to be on a separate day, and we're limited on those, right? Especially with how crazy the end of the school year is or whatever. So it's my recommendation that before we leave tonight, we have something ironed out. Look at your calendars. I don't know, but that gives you time to prepare for it too. Because if we do it like at 3 o'clock, that's hard, right? I mean, oftentimes for some of us to get here, whatever, but we always seem to not be able to finish, and then we come into a meeting and it's, so, just caution.
Is there, okay, so on
We
the
just set
11th.
that meeting here?
Sir?
Do we just set that workshop date here and now?
We can, yes, we can.
I would suggest the week of June the 3rd, if we're going to have it
Yes.
before the June the 3rd week, which mean if you want to do it on Tuesday, it'd be June the 4th.
Tuesday,
Across the country.
June 4th?
On the 4th?
What about the 6th?
Still gone.
You're gone that whole week, Jeff? So are you, right?
8 days.
I'm out all week. Only week I get on vacation.
I can't do the 4th or the 5th.
See?
Okay, well, let's go, yeah, you're right, yeah. Let's go back to,
What about Monday the 10th?
Monday the 10th, Lance?
McCoy has an orthodontist appointment, but I'm good on.
Yes?
For the 11th, right.
okay. So, all right, with the 11th being our,
How long you see?
so but you'll be ready?
It needs to be the week of the 3rd to the 7th.
Oh, when you said changes, okay, when you said changes, you meant changes that we would make, that you would need to, okay,
Right.
okay, understood, okay.
So
Well, maybe-
Friday the 7th, are you guys out the whole week?
Yeah, you guys are still out.
No, actually, I take that back. That week, that first part of that week, I'm good. But it's the subsequent week that I'm bad.
Yeah, well, the subsequent week I'm out too.
Yeah, sounds like that's not a good time anyway.
You could be out of town the 7th?
Lance, you're gonna be out of town the week of the 3rd? Week of the 3rd?
I'll be out of town the whole week
Of the 3rd?
of the 3rd. I'm gone. I'm taking vacation every single year, 27 years.
All right, well, we don't have a consensus on a date.
Well, how about
So,
this?
let-
Ju-
yes.
You might have to do,
If-
right,
No,
you
no,
might
no,
have
I
to do
mean,
6.
we're just,
I can call in a conference call or Zoom it in.
I'd say let's just go for like June the 4th and then take a quorum if we got it, and then the others will rely on your guidance as we go forth to the 11th.
June 4th,
I can just review and give my thoughts to somebody.
okay.
June the 4th works?
Time?
What time works, guys? What time?
Yes, sir.
Earlier the better for me, but that's up to y'all.
Is anybody available for like a 9 o'clock workshop, 9 a.m. workshop? Not gonna work, okay. On the,
That's not good.
on the 4th.
Unless you want my kids here with me, and that's not productive.
As they sit in the river, we all talking budget.
Okay, so that afternoon. 3, 4, 5?
4?
4?
Till 6?
4? So if that gives us
4?
4 to 6?
4 to 6? 3 to 6?
Okay.
3 o'clock?
3 o'clock.
We're gonna have to have some decision when we're done with that meeting.
Right.
guidance to us,
The
basically.
resident banker and insurance guy are there. I feel confident that I trust my teammates.
3 o'clock on June the 4th, is that what I'm
3
hearing?
o'clock, June the 4th, yes, sir.
Okay. You still need that motion.
All right,
approved.
we still need the motion for the public meeting date.
Mr. President, I move that the board approves Tuesday, June 11th, 2019 as a date to hold a public meeting to discuss the 2019-2020 budget and to publish the required notice for the proposed tax rate of $1.4306 per $100 valuation.
Thank you, sir. Motion, Mr. Floyd, is there a second?
A second.
Second, Carbone. Any further discussion? If not, let's vote. All in favor, please raise your hands. Motion carries 7-0. All right. We're down to the administrative reports. The quarterly investment report is there for your reading
Yes, sir.
at your convenience. And item B under the administration reports is an update on the budget, tax calculations, and including consideration of salary and benefits 2019-2020.
Yeah, Mr. President, I just put this in as a placeholder for any discussion you might want to have, but there's not a whole lot of new news from what I've been emailing you all constantly. Our biggest battle right now is over current year values versus prior year values, as Michael mentioned, and we'll probably know that within 2 or 3 days.
All right. The issue is that everything we've needed has, for the most part, not come through. Right? The cost of education index would have been great. That's gone. Now they're looking at current year values versus prior year. You know, that's not looking good either. But
Mr. President,
yes, ma'am.
has other districts, have they already set salary schedules and, no, everybody's waiting?
Holding pattern.
Okay, so I guess to our teachers, hopefully by June 11th, we'll know something.
From their point of view, it's going to be good news. How big the good news is, we don't know. But for teachers, I think for sure there's going to be a compromise between the $1,850 that the House wants for teachers and the $5,000 that the Senate wants. So there'll be something good for them, but they won't know it until June 11th or later. Yeah.
Right.
And
And what do we
again,
do with them?
difference between
How do we compensate them?
Yeah, difference between the House bill and the Senate bill. The House bill attempts to address that and makes you spend 25% of the amount you're spending towards salaries on those other employees. The Senate doesn't address it at all. So we'll know that again, and we hope in 3 or 4 days.
So we'd love to have a number. We'd love to have it, but we just don't have the data.
That's right, sir.
All right, anything further there?
No, sir.
Nothing else? Okay. Anything else? Well, there's no other motion, no other business to come before the board. So we will stand adjourned at 8:08 p.m.